So one day when I was a kid, I was playing on the sidewalk with my best friend. I noticed I could make what sounded like a little tune by hitting two of the different tiles with my ball. See if you can hear the same when I make the sound. I heard a low note when I hit the tile on the left, and I heard a high note when I hit the tile on the right. Do you hear that? My best friend heard the same thing. But then I showed my dad, and ever the killjoy, he pointed out that the two tiles were making basically the same sound. It was an illusion. I realized that if I switched my perception a little bit, I could hear a high note from the tile on the left and a low note from the tile on the right. My brain was taking this chaotic external sound and converting it into a note. And I could change my perception of the note just by changing my expectation. And I became fascinated with how humans navigate and perceive uncertainty, which is why I fell in love with statistics. And today I'm going to talk about how statistics helps us navigate uncertainty in our life, but also how we can use uncertainty as a creative superpower. So, acknowledging uncertainty often brings us discomfort. We'd often rather fool ourselves than admit we don't know what's going on. But we constantly don't really know what's going on. Our brain is taking the limited information from our eyes and from our ears and making a guess, just a wild guess about what's happening in the external world. That guess is what we see, hear, and think is true. We want to be certain that our guesses are correct, but that doesn't mean we always are. Some of you may remember the dress. So raise your hand if this dress looks white and gold to you. Okay, I hear some astonishment already. Raise your hand if this dress looks black and blue to you. Okay, that's a majority, but it doesn't mean that you're right either. So in 2015, as some of you remember, the internet flipped out around this photo with really passionate feelings on both of these sides. So the black and blue folks, you're on Team Taylor Swift. And the white and gold folks are on Team Anna Kendrick. And people were really disturbed that people were seeing it differently because they were so certain they were seeing it correctly. But really, the picture itself is ambiguous. The lighting is very confusing, and we don't know exactly how the dress is being lit up. And if we assume that the dress is under yellow light, then it's probably black and blue. But if it's in a bluish shadow, which is also plausible from the photo, then it should be white and gold. We don't have enough information to know, and our brain makes a guess, and that's what we see. We don't see the uncertainty. Statistics is the science of trying to make better guesses than maybe we might intuitively. And we learned a bunch about how to make the best guesses from a debate, of all places, in 18th century astronomy. So astronomers were confused about how to get the best measurements because they kept on getting differing measurements when they measured the same thing over and over again in the night sky. Even the same person doing the same measurement again might get different results. Some people said, okay, let's just take one measurement and be done with it. Then there's no inconsistency. Others, like this guy, Thomas Simpson, argued that we should take a whole bunch of measurements and then take the average of those. The argument goes like this. We might be off, have a too big measurement, or off, have a too small measurement on one time. There's a lot of error and uncertainty. But as we measure over and over again, those large and small deviations average out, and our average should be close to the true value. In my research, I call this growing certain. As we gather more information, our estimates hopefully get closer to the true value. Now, statisticians don't just manage uncertainty, we also actively use it. We actually use randomness. Why do we use randomness? So let's say we want to know something about a huge population. We want to know the average family size in Ho Chi Minh City. Are we going to go out and ask every single person in Ho Chi Minh City the size of their family? But we can take a sample. And because it's a random sample, just 1,000 people are likely to have a similar average family size to the city overall. So the statistician Marta Aliaga has the analogy of tasting from a big pot of soup. So if we want to taste our pho and see if it tastes good, we don't drink the whole pot. Then there's none left for anybody else. What we do is we take a spoonful. But if we just take a spoonful from the top without mixing it up or anything, it's watery. All those 24 delicious spices all sank to the bottom, and we don't know what it tastes like anymore. Instead, we mix it up. We add randomness. And then when we take a spoonful, we're likely to have a similar balance to the full pot of soup. We know what the soup tastes like now. And life actively uses randomness as well. So around 2 billion years ago, as I'm sure you all remember, life came up with a brand new strategy for reproducing: sexual reproduction. This vastly increases the randomness and diversity of life by requiring 2 different organisms, possibly randomly, getting together and mixing up their genetic material to create the next generation. And so this contributes to the huge variety of forms of life we see in the world, including the large, mostly hairless primate who's giving this speech. Us large, mostly hairless primates recognize the value of uncertainty too. We love playing games with rolling dice and drawing cards for our game of bridge or Tien Len. And we shuffle the deck beforehand. Imagine how boring these games would be without randomness and you drew the same cards every time. Creatively, we know the value of the spontaneity that can come with uncertainty as well. Jazz musicians improvising and rappers freestyling know that their music isn't just good despite the challenge of uncertainty, but because of it. So hopefully I've got you fired up about uncertainty by now. But we often misunderstand uncertainty. So how can we unlock its full value? I think there's 2 key things we can do. One is we can have more purposeful experiences of uncertainty, and the other is for us to find better ways to represent uncertainty. So why would we need more experience of uncertainty when we have so much uncertainty every day? But the problem is these everyday experiences of uncertainty, as psychologist Daniel Kahneman pointed out in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, these everyday experiences don't give us the kind of corrective feedback where we can learn and realize that our brains are making a wrong guess. So I could have gone the rest of my life believing those 2 tiles made different notes. And Anna Kendrick could have gone the rest of her life believing the dress is white and gold. So this is a slightly clearer picture of the dress. So what we need is some kind of discipline where we have these experiences of uncertainty in a controlled setting. In statistics, we already have a discipline of uncertainty. So one way of engaging with uncertainty more fully is to start teaching statistics and exposing children to statistics at a younger age. And we can learn statistics in a more interactive and experiential way. There's been a revolution in statistics education in the past 20 years as more teachers understand the psychology of uncertainty and help students experience randomness through playing games and interactive computer simulations. New Zealand, where these pictures are from, may be a world leader here, where children in primary school are already experiencing a lot of the main ideas of statistics. But I believe we can take this outside the classroom as well. So I'm going to propose that we all find a trusted uncertainty device, or a TUD. So, welcome to my TUD talk. So your TUD can be any random process, like rolling a die or flipping a coin. And the key is to use your TUD to make a decision. So let's say, and this happened to me yesterday actually, you're deciding whether to buy a shirt. You're not sure whether to buy it, you've compared several options, you've compared prices, but you're still not quite sure. You can roll a die to help answer it. If it's 1 to 3, buy the shirt. If it's 4 to 6, don't buy the shirt. I bought the shirt, just so you know. My wife and I settle some of our disagreements through the age-old practice of rock, paper, scissors. We can know that it's fair because we both have an equal chance of winning. Of course, we try to reason things out beforehand, but when we reach a point where we're stuck in uncertainty, we can help get unstuck with uncertainty as well. And there's 5 reasons I think this practice can be helpful. Number 1 is when we have this trusted uncertainty device, we can clarify our preferences. So this isn't a replacement for thinking, for research, for logic, but we have to make a decision of how, let's say, the sides of a die will help us answer our question or help us make our decision. Another thing is that it helps us externalize this vague, amoeba-like uncertainty that's floating around in our heads and put it externally onto a concrete object, like a dice. In the book, The Extended Mind, the journalist Annie Marie Paul gathers many beautiful examples of how humans think better, think in a stronger way when we have external tools to think with. Another thing this does is it gives us feedback on the choices that we make in a different sort of way. So the other day, I was rolling a die to make another decision. Yes, I know, I'm an uncertainty nerd. And I rejected the result as soon as I saw it. I said, to heck with the TUD, I'm going to do what I want. But that in itself was something that I learned from the feedback I was getting from this device. Another benefit is this adds a kind of regularity to our decision-making process. It creates a kind of ritual around it where we can learn from and see the repeated patterns more easily. I'm going to spend a little time on the 5th benefit of this practice, which is a connection to the sense of awe and mystery of the uncertainty in our lives and how much we really don't know. We can connect with this especially strongly when we choose an uncertainty device that has cultural meaning or significance to us. For me, I use the tarot. The tarot has a bunch of different cards with different complex symbols on them. I shuffle the deck, I use that randomness, and then I draw a card. And then I use all of those human reasoning skills, those filling in of incomplete information, the guessing, to try to connect my question with this random card with its complex symbolism. And that gives me a different perspective on a situation. And I found this incredibly insightful. And this whole practice is really nothing new. It's what fortune tellers have been doing with many tools, likely for tens of thousands of years. It could be drawing a random line from Drinkyu. It could be casting the sticks for the I Ching, or reading the tea leaves at the bottom of a cup. All these ancient practices help us connect with what we know and what we don't know. There's another piece of this, though. We still struggle with how to think about uncertainty. And it's a problem that me and many other statistics education researchers are still not quite there yet. We've been playing around with computer animations and games and even sound as ways of representing uncertainty. but we're still having trouble making it more intuitive and more accessible to people. But I'll tell you why I have hope that maybe we can find a way someday. And that's the fact that everybody in this room can probably do arithmetic. That may not seem very fancy, but symbolic arithmetic was just not something that humans were evolved to do. We have some innate numerical abilities, but even in ancient times, some ancient cultures figured out ways of doing arithmetic with complex number systems like we see on this ancient Babylonian tablet. But it was an elite skill that only a few people had. But then we made some advances in the last 9,000 years. We've developed the Hindu-Arabic numeral system we use today. We've developed techniques for adding, subtracting, dividing, and multiplying that are easier to use. And we've developed norms of a widespread education system. And so now with all of these things and the hard work of thousands of teachers, children everywhere learn arithmetic. I hope we can get to the same place with uncertainty and randomness, and hopefully sooner than 9,000 years from now. And I believe this is more urgent than ever. We're in an environment that's very different than the environment we were evolved to live in, which was hunting and gathering in the African savanna. We have complex systems, we have climate change, we have systemic racism, we have a lot of things we're trying to navigate. Statistics can help us make better guesses and navigate through that uncertainty. Randomness can help us connect to spontaneity and fun. And practices of fortune telling even can help us connect to the larger mystery and humility that we want to face randomness and uncertainty with. So I'll leave you with a question. Where in your life can you learn to trust uncertainty? Thank you.